Hi, I'm Jim Bergeron, and I'm pastor at Holy Cross Lutheran Church in Houston, Texas. And this is Sermon for the Fourth Sunday of Lent from the 9th chapter of the Gospel of John, Blinded by the Light. The 9th chapter of John keeps picking on me. It's a funny story, dripping with irony. John drops concepts into our perceptual field, kind of like pearls down into sweet cream. I keep going back and peeking around the edges of verses, hoping to stumble into a vision of understanding and a glimpse of glory. The disciples, eager puppies, good students all say, "Okay, Jesus, here's a test case we have for you." Their little organization kind of looks a little bit like a rabbinical school, so they're pretending to be lawyers without ever having taken an LSAT, much less a bar exam. Why is that beggar blind? Did he sin, or did his parents? It's a case of attempting to infer backwards from a problem to its probable cause. How do you know the world? Where does meaning coalesce and emerge? Is there a karmic 1-to-1 ratio between the good stuff and the bad stuff? Sin and suffering. Can I head off future pain at the pass by an enhanced, hyper-effective religious transaction in the present? These are all epistemological questions. How do we know? How do we perceive and understand our universe? And how do we effect changes in it? Now, lazy thinking will settle on the first tenuously related contingency prior to the observed effect. If one is not obvious, then a person is free to superstitiously make up a cause to trigger the effect. Ball players are notoriously superstitious. Maybe they wear their underwear backwards because once they won a game doing that, and that's the way it is from then on. Lazy thinking is that way. This man is blind. So, who committed the sin? What caused the problem? The disciples want to know. Now, one way we make sense of the universe is through noting the relationship of behaviors and outcomes, crime and punishment, cause and effect. It's convenient to try and organize the world casually. It's a map. And the map corresponds to the territory often enough that it's a little bit useful. It's kind of like a topographical map of a mountainous jungle. You can read it, and you can see, based on the lines of topography, the elevations of the distances, about how long it will take you to walk a kilometer in those conditions. But you are clueless as to the vines that you will have to go through and the tigers you meet. In reality, you're blind, but you think you can see because you have a map. It's rudimentary. There's divine order, though, in the beautiful randomness that can't be mapped. You can't explain grace away with a neat formula. You can't explain sin or badness based on very specific kinds of behaviors. Someone's hurt, so someone must have sinned. What did you do to make that bad thing happen in your life? Jesus discounts it as lazy logic. Blaming the victim, it's not going to wash, okay? That person's already hurting. You want to kick him too while he's down? Suffering is to be met with compassion, not judgment. So the disciples asked Jesus to teach epistemology. How do we know the world? Why do things happen? Color code the cause, and we will avoid the effects. Why is the beggar blind? Did he drink too much canned heat, or did his mother have a disease? Those are moralistic questions. Jesus is operating out of something different. Healing grace not divine punishment. He makes a mud pack out of spit, clay dust. It kind of reminds us of the creation story now, doesn't it? He smears it on the blind man's eyes, and sends him to wash up in a pool named Scent. I'm guessing it was very uncomfortable for the blind man at first until he washed the dirt out of his eyes. And now he can see? Immediately, things get complicated. He's interrogated about this miracle of sight. His neighbors turn him in for being able to see. Well, they're not really sure it's even him. I mean, they never really looked at him when he was blind. Didn't want to stare, you know. And why not? I mean, he couldn't look back. The religious authorities slap together a kangaroo court. But they have no evidence against him, so they go after Jesus for breaking the Sabbath. He made a mud ointment, number one. No practicing pharmacy on the Sabbath. Number two, he picked it up and he put it somewhere else, from the ground to the guy's eyes. No farming or plowing on the Sabbath. He used it for healing purposes. No doctoring on the Sabbath. And the beggar can only say, I don't know. I just got here. Funny thing is, I can see now. The religious court says, you weren't really blind then. Subpoena the parents. We'll get to the bottom of this. We don't know anything except that, well, he says, I was blind, and now it looks like he can see. The parents say, ask him. We don't want to get involved. He's old enough to answer for himself. They may be upset, because it was common then to maybe even blind a child and live off of their beggarly income. Now, somebody else in the family is going to have to go to work, get a job. The court brings him back a second time for another round of abuse. A sinner like Jesus can't make a blind man see, they say. Blind man says, well, all I know is I was blind, and now I am seeing. It looks clear to the court that, one, sinners can't teach. Two, sinners can't pray. Three, sinners can't heal. And four, sinners can't forget. The court appears to be blindly indicting itself. Every judgment we make is a judgment of our own condition. You are cheating, says the cheater. You stole, says the thief. Funny how you noticed that, says the person who's no longer blind. The man, formerly blind, refuses to cave in to the pressure that's being applied to him. Great journalist H.L. Mencken said in the 1920s that if the right pressure were applied, congressmen would be cheerfully in favor of polygamy, astrology, or cannibalism. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, huh? Mencken also said the urge to save humanity is almost always a false front for the urge to rule. Remember that when you watch the news. The ex-blind beggar was on solid ground. He was speaking only from his experience. He didn't even see Jesus. At the time, he was blind, but he probably will never forget his voice. So whoever it was that healed him, it worked. He's a disciple. He will worship this mystery. Would you like to worship him also? Finally, the ex-blind beggar takes the offense. He refuses to answer questions. He starts asking them instead, which is contempt of court. Why do you want to know, he asks. Do you want to be Jesus' disciple too? The Pharisees, blinded by the light, kick him out of the temple for good. Of course, he was never allowed in there before because he was blind. So he's not going to be missing much there. Jesus came to heal the world. We may say, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm fine. Relationships, health, finances, sort of secure. Business as usual. I don't need to bother Jesus with healing right now. Maybe not. But John's central teaching rings out. Losing your sight's a tragic thing. Far worse is having healthy eyes and being spiritually blind. The twin themes of this chapter are a play on physical blindness and spiritual blindness. Jesus finds the man not once, but twice, and cares for him both times, once in his blindness and once more in his sightedness. Jesus' care is always ongoing. The man is loyal to the one who healed him and will worship him even under duress. Perhaps his new vision will always give him more trouble than his old comfortable blindness. But the gift opened up to him God's strange and wonderful and mysterious surprises. It's a funny story. Every time the court says, "We know this or that," they get farther from the truth. Every time the beggar says, "I don't know," he gets closer and closer to the truth. Every time physical blindness is spotlighted, spiritual blindness is lifted up as a balancing twin theme. It crescendos to the final question of the Pharisaic opponents. Are we also blind then? Well, perhaps we all are. Sometimes it's hard to see with our hearts. Business as usual distracts and blinds us. It's not that we're bad. We're inattentive. We miss the richness and joy surrounding us. But like the healed blind man, we follow the God which we haven't yet seen. But we know he has loved, saved, awakened, and healed us for service. Here's mud in your eye. Go wash up. Amen.